Hello there and welcome to my series The Unfinished Arcs of Star Wars The Clone Wars. In this video we will be covering the 7th unfinished story arc, Saving Vos. Please note there will be spoilers for the Dark Disciple novel, The Bad Batch, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Resistance. Back when this story arc and the Dark Disciple story arc were being planned as episodes, they were two separate story arcs. When the novel adaptation happened, this story arc was merged with the Dark Disciple arc and became the Dark Disciple novel. I will thus refer to this half as its original intended name, Saving Vos, the first half as Dark Disciple, and when talking about the novel specifically, I will refer to it as the Dark Disciple novel to make a clear distinction. In 2014, this was the 9th story arc to be left unfinished, but due to the final season in 2020 completing both the 3rd and 4th unfinished story arcs, Ahsoka's Walkabout and The Bad Batch, this one has now become the 7th. Taking up production code 705-708, following on from Return of the Jedi 701-704, this story arc was intended to be the season premiere arc of the full 20-episode 8th and true final season, airing as episodes 1 to 4, which presumably would have aired in the fall/autumn of 2015, around the time when the 2nd season of Star Wars Rebels premiered. This story arc would have continued and concluded the story of Asajj Ventress after Dark Disciple would have left it on a cliffhanger where Quinlan Vos sides with Dooku and Ventress loses hope. While Saving Vos was released as the latter half of the Dark Disciple novel, as it was never finished on screen, it still technically counts as being unfinished, especially considering on-screen stories have been recently contradicting elements of novel and comic ones. This story arc and Dark Disciple are unique in the fact that they have 3 writers, with Katie Lucas, then head writer Matt Michnovetz, and Dave Filoni all co-writing the scripts. Sadly, the directors for these 4 episodes would have most likely not been assigned yet. This story arc, alongside Dark Disciple, is regarded by many as a story that deserves to be on screen. Opening this story arc, we have the episode titled Saving Vos Part 1. Picking up the story from the Dark Disciple arc and taking place a few months later, this arc starts with Ventress being recruited by the Jedi to rescue Vos. The Jedi Council obtain intelligence that Vos has been working under the title Admiral Enigma and was last sighted on a Separatist dreadnought. While Anakin and Mace object to Ventress being a part of the mission to rescue Vos, Yoda and Obi-Wan vouch for her. Ventress agrees to take part in the mission after the Jedi Council promised to follow up on Ahsoka's previous offer of a pardon. Ventress, teaming up with Obi-Wan and Anakin, uses her Banshee starfighter to infiltrate Dooku's dreadnought. Ventress utilises her prior Separatist knowledge of back when she was Dooku's apprentice to approve a landing into the hangar. Anakin and Obi-Wan inquire as to where Vos would be located on the dreadnought, with Ventress thinking that he'd be in the command chair. The trio fight their way through the dreadnought, taking out droids as they make their way. Surprised, they find Dooku, with Anakin immediately engaging in a lightsaber duel against him. Ventress, however, doesn't pay Dooku any notice, instead trying to locate Vos to no success. Dooku utilises his Force Lightning in the duel, requiring Ventress to deflect some of her own yellow saber when it gets near her. Anakin moves to the 3rd level of the bridge with Dooku following him. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan and Ventress are attacked by droids, but Obi-Wan manages to locate Vos. He's not on the bridge because he's in the brig. This leads Obi-Wan to believe Admiral Enigma is nothing but a ruse by Dooku to lower the Jedi's morale, and that Vos is still a captive. Ventress, gaining a new sense of hope, continues to smash droids with the Force in anticipation on reuniting with Vos. Anakin stays behind and continues to fight Dooku, while Obi-Wan and Ventress go to rescue Vos, with Ventress sealing the door shut so that Dooku can't request for any reinforcements. Vos is shackled to the wall, shirtless and pale, like he had not seen daylight since Ventress last saw him those few months ago. Vos, with a weakened voice, acts pleased to see both Obi-Wan and Ventress. Vos tries to apologise for attacking Ventress when she tried to rescue him on Sereno, but she finds it hard to accept. Vos pleads with her that he never really turned to the dark side and that it was all a ruse to convince Dooku. Ventress senses something amiss with Vos that Obi-Wan does not share, with him suggesting that maybe her emotions are clouding her judgment. Though Ventress exclaims that Vos is tricking them and that she can feel the hatred seeping out of him. Concluding that he has been consumed by the dark side, and declaring death is the only way to free him, she begins to swipe him with a fatal blow of her lightsaber. Continuing directly where the 1st episode left off, we have Saving Vos Part 2. Before Ventress can properly strike, Obi-Wan intervenes and blocks her. Obi-Wan pushes her back and shouts at her, but Ventress leaps over Obi-Wan and again tries to attack Vos, with Vos only being able to force push her back slightly in his supposed weakened state. This distraction allows Obi-Wan to land a kick and knock Ventress down. Ventress does not understand how Obi-Wan can't feel the dark side oozing off of Vos like she can. Obi-Wan pleads with Ventress to reconsider her actions so she doesn't murder the very person they came to rescue. Their struggle is suddenly stopped when Vos informs them of incoming company, being that of battle droids headed their way. Ventress eventually agrees to leave after Obi-Wan suggests they can have this argument later. Vos and Obi-Wan follow suit, but almost run into Ventress when she suddenly stops and sees Anakin reappear, having cut a hole from the floor above. The four of them flee to the hangar with the Banshee, but are unable to disable the shields when Ventress reveals they've changed the codes. Vos recommends to disable the shields as well as stop the hangar doors from closing, annoying Ventress, who assumes he'll just not come back. All of a sudden, Anakin notes to Ventress that the doors have stopped closing and tells her to check the shields. Confused, Ventress exclaims that they are able to escape. Vos, returning quickly, boards the Banshee as they escape the hangar. Droid Tri-Fighters are sent after the Banshee, requiring Ventress to have extra caution to avoid their attacks, especially with the risk of buzz droids being deployed to disable the Banshee's systems. Anakin asks Ventress how quick can the Banshee enter hyperspace, with her responding that it's not fast enough against these droids. Ventress refuses to let Vos assist her in the escape as Anakin protests her flying skills, thinking she's going to end up killing them. Vos's injuries are tended to in awkward silence after Anakin mentions Ventress in a joke to try and ease the tension. Vos makes his way to the cockpit to try and apologise to Ventress again, with Ventress denying all of it and breaking off their entire relationship, exclaiming that the Quinlan Vos she knew is dead. Back in the Jedi Council chamber, Yoda and Mace greet Vos. Ventress holds back her concerns as they would probably not believe her anyway. Yoda thanks Ventress for helping them return Vos, and Mace Windu honours their agreement by pardoning her of all her previous crimes. Ventress begrudgingly thanks them for her pardon, with her bowing and leaving the room. Ventress walking down the hall is followed by Vos, who tries one last attempt to apologise to her. To no success, he finally lets her go. Anakin returns home to a surprised Padme, who's happy to see him. Anakin informs her of the situation that has unfolded with Vos, stating they have not informed Palpatine as this was a Jedi matter. Anakin automatically blames Ventress if Vos did actually turn to the dark side, but admitted he saw actual genuine emotion from her for the first time. Anakin assumes that Ventress can't be selfless enough to love, but Padme suggests that if she does love, maybe she's the key to saving Vos. Starting the third episode, Traitor, we see Obi-Wan having a meeting with the Jedi Council about Vos's condition. Mace Windu accuses Ventress of just handing Vos over to Dooku, with Kenobi replying that Vos said she didn't. Kenobi exclaims that Vos has explained the situation multiple times, he's not hiding anything, and he hasn't fallen to the dark side. Yoda agrees that Vos has made his choice, a good one, with all but Mace agreeing with Yoda, who thinks Vos needs another month to make sure he's telling the truth for certain. Obi-Wan states that Vos was in a unique position and they are able to utilise his knowledge of Dooku's operations. Shark T agrees with this, proclaiming that he is now ready to be sent on a more important mission. Vos enters the council room with Yoda congratulating him for performing well on the smaller tasks they assigned him beforehand. Vos understands the council's hesitation towards him, while Yoda states in return that they are satisfied with the progress of his recovery and assigns him a task. Mace Windu activates a hologram that shows an asteroid, which is the location of a separatist storage base. The Jedi think that securing the base could help them provide support to planets affected by the Clone Wars. This mission is to be headed by both Obi-Wan and Vos, with Obi-Wan requesting that Anakin also come with them. Taking their own ETA-2 Actis-class interceptors, they travel to the location of the asteroid. Suddenly, half a dozen droid starfighters emerge from the asteroid, with the Jedi engaging in combat with them. The entrance to the asteroid was able to fit a medium-sized transport, with a long and curving tunnel located inside. Passing through an environmental field, the Jedi exit their starfighters and traverse the base. Confirming Mace's intel to be correct, the base was full of what seemed to be supplies, with the Jedi needing to request more transport to carry all of it. Anakin has no idea where to start with the supplies, with Obi-Wan assuring him it doesn't matter and that they should just help the clones secure it onto the transports. Vos, on the other hand, decides to leave the others and check around for what he states is something more valuable than simple humanitarian aid. Anakin jokingly accuses Vos of just wanting to get out of the grunt work, with Vos jokingly agreeing back. 3 transports containing Commander Cody, Captain Rex and other clones enter the asteroid base, with the clones coming in to help lift the supplies. Obi-Wan tries to reach Vos on the comm, with Vos suddenly interrupting him and demanding that he get everyone and the transports out of there quickly, with him having apparently found bombs with the whole place rigged to blow. Obi-Wan informs Cody, who in turn tells his men to hurry up and move, with the transports leaving one by one and the Jedi entering their interceptors. Vos shows up in the nick of time, getting into his own interceptor, with Kenobi waiting for him. Obi-Wan uses the Force to send his way out of the long and tunneling asteroid, with Vos just behind him. The bombs had exploded, and while the asteroid was still intact, its interior looked like nothing but black smoke. While the Jedi and clones escaped without the supplies, the clones stay behind to assess the damage, and see if anything can be salvaged, while the Jedi return back to Coruscant. Having another meeting with the Council, the Jedi are told of a separatist listening post on Vancor. Vos telling the Jedi that this is the one Dooku informed him about, and how they need to be prepared because it's mostly manned by just droids, so to expect lots of defences. The Vigilance exits hyperspace, and Anakin, Obi-Wan and Vos are all in their interceptors, backed up by a fleet of ARC-170 starfighters. They notice how there seems to be no form of resistance coming from the outpost, discovering it has been abandoned. Meanwhile this is going on, the Jedi get a report back from the clones at the asteroid base that there is evidence of a traitor in their midst. Yoda, suspecting all is not what it seems, has a one-to-one meeting with Vos where he is finally able to sense that Ventress was right. Vos has fallen to the dark side. To truly test his loyalty, the Council decide to send Vos on a mission to kill Dooku again, and if Vos betrays them at any time, Obi-Wan is to execute him for his treachery. We reach the final episode of the arc with The Path. Ventress is in a park on the surface of Coruscant, waiting to meet Vos. She is concerned that he is a little late. Vos finally showing up informs Ventress that the Jedi have again given him the mission to assassinate Count Dooku. Ventress is instantly hesitant at this, considering what happened the last time they tried. Vos exclaims that he can do it now with his newfound knowledge, but Ventress isn't convinced, urgently trying to persuade him to leave the Jedi Order. Vos states that they aren't free of Dooku until he is dead, but Ventress doesn't care enough whether he lives or dies. Vos suggests that they have to do it to finally have the life they want, without the risk of Dooku ruining it. Ventress eventually agrees, but only if they do it together. Vos, initially against the idea of her tagging along, relents, knowing her too well to even try and put up an argument. Ventress and Vos go to the Jedi Temple Situation Room. The majority of the Jedi are surprised and outraged with Ventress's appearance in the temple, with Mace Windu asking Vos why is she even here. Vos reminds them that they were the ones who suggested he work with Ventress in the first place. Ki-Adi-Mundi agrees with this, reminding everyone that she did get a full pardon. Mace inquires further into why Vos has brought Ventress, with Vos defending her based on how close they got to assassinating Dooku previously. Before the situation could get any more heated, Yoda steps in, stating they do trust her. This surprises Ventress, but she still didn't want this, and wanted to be well away from both the Jedi and the Sith. Obi-Wan exclaims that this is settled then, before Ventress starts looking at the different planets holographically displayed, and narrowing them down. Ventress, selecting Christophsis, zooms into an unknown-worthy city, stating this is where Grievous will be. Changing the city view to an orbital one, Ventress points towards Dooku's dreadnought, exclaiming this is Dooku's current location. Obi-Wan questions this, with Ventress stating, after everything Dooku has done to me, why would I possibly lie to you about this? Returning to the Banshee that is now parked between two Jedi starfighters, Ventress and Vos both compliment each other on their performance. Ventress asks whether this is truly a solo mission, with Vos exclaiming that he knows that the Jedi intend to follow him and is counting on them doing so. Ventress, not liking where this is going, gets suspicious of Vos and asks him what sort of game he is playing. Vos, stating he has his secrets, asks Ventress to trust him with this, something she begrudgingly does. The Banshee exits hyperspace above Christophsis. With a battle in progress, Dooku's hangar shields are down and their doors are open. Vos convinces Ventress that he is going to take on Dooku alone. Meanwhile, Anakin brings a stolen Separatist shuttle aboard the Vigilance. His plan is to use it to sneak into the Dreadnought, complete with 2 reprogrammed battle droids piloting the ship. Obi-Wan exclaims how insane his plan is, with Anakin returning back that Obi-Wan should not be a downer for once. Using the reprogrammed droids, Anakin and Obi-Wan are able to scout out the Dreadnought and see what the droids see. Anakin, using the droid, states he has information to give to Dooku and asks another droid where Dooku is located. The droid informs him that Dooku is currently on the bridge, but he will be heading to his observation room soon. Anakin and Obi-Wan look around the observation room before they have to hide when Dooku enters. Shortly after Dooku arrives, so does Vos, having been brought there by another droid, looking not like the bright, cheerful version of Vos the Jedi know, but an evil, cold and calculated version of him instead. Dooku asks him if his mission was successful. Vos states that he is here, so that should answer the question. Dooku senses Vos has a great strength within him before Vos suddenly ignites his lightsaber, ready to kill Dooku. With Dooku and Vos commencing a duel that Vos eventually gains the upper hand of, Kenobi wonders why Vos hasn't delivered the final blow. With Dooku wondering what Vos would gain with his death, Vos exclaims that he would gain a new master. After being tortured for information by Vos, Dooku promises to take him to Sidious, but before this can happen, Obi-Wan and Anakin come out of hiding and arrest the pair. Bringing the prisoners back to the Vigilance, Cody is tasked with securing them, though eventually they manage to escape, forcing Ventress into an unwilling getaway driver. Unsuccessfully managing to land a Banshee in the Dreadnought, it is shot down by the Vigilance and crash lands on the surface of Christophsis. Quickly escaping across the crystalline surface, the trio are pursued by Anakin, Obi-Wan and their clone forces. While this is going on, Obi-Wan contacts Ventress and informs her of Vos's fall, and that if she doesn't persuade him to surrender, the Jedi will execute him. Ventress, confronting Vos on this, has him exclaim to her that he is reaching his goal without informing her exactly of what his goal is. Reaching a Separatist base, Dooku is informed that Sidious wants to have a holo conversation with him. During the brief conversation, Dooku tries to persuade Sidious to send him aid. While this is going on, Vos is unable to identify Sidious as Chancellor Palpatine. The Separatist base is bombarded with Republic forces, and while Windu wants the fugitives executed, Obi-Wan wants them to be recovered alive. Anakin objects going into the base, but him and Obi-Wan do anyway in search of Dooku and Vos. Ventress is badly wounded by the falling debris and blaster fire, with Vos aiding her as they follow Dooku trying to escape the base. As a ceasefire is ordered by the Jedi, Ventress confronts Vos on his fall to the dark side, with Vos finally admitting to her that he has indeed fallen. Dooku uses this distraction as a way to try and kill Vos. Ventress, sensing this, sacrifices herself in a selfless act to protect the last person she cares about. Dooku expects Vos to kill him in retaliation, but in a moment of redemption, Vos reclaims the light side of the Force, declaring himself a Jedi once again. With Vos comforting Ventress as her time seemingly comes to an end, Dooku uses this opportunity to escape. As the Jedi catch up with Vos, he surrenders to them and is taken back to the Jedi Temple. Vos confesses he did turn to the dark side, but only to use Dooku to get to Sidious to kill both of the Sith Lords in one go. While accepting his reckless actions caused much damage, including the deaths of innocents, he defends Ventress, saying it was her who brought him back, she saved him. Obi-Wan states that it was pointless for the Jedi to try and use assassination as a way to end the war, making them as bad as the Sith, and exclaims that Ventress was a friend to the Jedi. Vos is pardoned for his crimes, and with Obi-Wan travels to Dathomir. Here they lay Ventress's body to rest in the magic pool near the now vacant Night Sister village. As her body is laid, the pool turns green and she is greeted by the spirits of her sisters, welcoming her home. Sadly, at the time of the cancellation, this story arc was the second out of the current 5 latter story arcs to only have draft scripts created for it. Before 2020, it was one of 6 story arcs to be in this condition, before the Siege of Mandalore was finished. Christy Golden confirmed she had been given the full scripts for the Saving Vos arc's 4 episodes. It's possible that Daniel Logan recorded his brief scenes of dialogue during the Bounty Hunter arc voiceover sessions, considering he probably didn't have enough dialogue to be worth bringing in alongside the main cast of this arc. Though this more likely would have been for the earlier Dark Disciple arc, with him possibly appearing in 3 episodes of that, which were already further along development compared to the Saving Vos arc. The Dark Disciple novel introduced Takar Deshu for the role to recruit Ventress and has her drunken outside of the bar she frequents on level 1313. We know that Takar Deshu was an addition to this story by the novel author Christy Golden and was not a part of the original draft script created for this arc. Sketches by Dave Filoni shown at the San Diego Comic-Con 10th anniversary panel show that an unlikely character would have appeared in this arc, being Ahsoka. The context surrounding her appearance has to do with the previous story arc Return to the Jedi. That would have Ahsoka leaving on better terms with the Jedi, being a free agent for them, and thus being willing to help them in this matter with Ventress, due to her promise that she'd get Ventress a pardon. Here, Ahsoka would actually go into the bar Ventress is in with Lat Razzie and most likely Boba Fett making an appearance. Being escorted by clone troopers, Ahsoka would convince Ventress to attend a council meeting like Takar Deshu does in the novel. The council would have sent Ahsoka because they knew she had created somewhat of a rapport with Ventress. It's most likely that a card issue was created to fill in Ahsoka's role in this arc, and then retrospectively added into additional sequences created before the Dark Disciple arc storyline to act as a character setup. It's most likely that Ahsoka would have also taken a card's role in the 3rd episode, being the one to discover the evidence of the traitor, while her presence in the 4th episode gives me a theory. What if Kev Bayons was a replacement for redeemed Barriss Offee? Continuing my theory of Barriss' involvement from the previous Return to the Jedi arc, maybe she would have been redeemed in that story for helping Ahsoka rescue Yoda from the Sith Shrine. Barriss could have been at the second Battle of Christophsis with Ahsoka, and she could have been who originally died in the sequence that was replaced with Akar and Kev's deaths. This could have been the original reason why Ahsoka ultimately doesn't rejoin the Order, as the Jedi are indeed getting darker as the war progresses, just like Barriss stated in Season 5, and Barriss' death because of this could have reinforced that viewpoint in Ahsoka. This would have fit in with this story arc's overall theme of redemption, and could also explain why Dave Filoni has his first writing credit on the show with this story arc, due to it being said he personally had additional plans for Barriss. This would suggest that Dave Filoni's co-writer credit that was revealed with the release of the Dark Disciple novel could have been specifically for the Saving Vos arc, but due to it and the Dark Disciple arcs being combined to form one long story in the Dark Disciple novel, I included Dave's co-writer credit in that previous video due to lack of a specific official confirmation. While the Siege of Mandalore sketches suggest that early ideas included Ahsoka being appointed general and being able to appoint Bo-Katan provisional leader, this could have always been them quickly giving her official titles to allow her to be a part of the siege, and could have always been changed had the art been further developed anyway. Maybe Ahsoka witnessing Barriss' death makes her refuse to leave Barriss' body. When Anakin returns later, he discovers Ahsoka has left off screen. Anakin will come to the conclusion that she left due to the Council's actions leading to Barriss' death, and thus adds to his disdainment of the Jedi Council. Anakin in the Siege of Mandalore mentioning Ahsoka left to be where she needed to be could be him recontextualising why she left off screen here, instead of during Season 5 of the Return to the Jedi arc. Ahsoka would most likely not know that Ventress had seemingly died in this case. If this was the original plan and it gets re-implemented in an animated version of this arc, this would now be what leads to Ahsoka running into the Martez sisters, having her travel back to Coruscant off-screen just like she was originally to meet with Bo-Katan off-screen. When looking at the Dave Filoni sketches for the first episode of this arc, it suggests that early ideas had Yoda be a part of the infiltration of Dooku's Dreadnought. This was obviously not kept in the Dark Disciple novel adaptation, and most likely changed by the time the scripts were written, due to Anakin's later scene with Padme. The sketches also seem to show that early ideas was for Ventress to be part of the same place that Ahsoka was found guilty of the crime she was accused of in Season 5, while also showing a scene of Vos conversing with Obi-Wan in a medical room. This story arc depicts the last known duel with Dooku before Revenge of the Sith, where they say this time we will do it together, which is recontextualised back to this story arc when only Anakin duels Dooku because Obi-Wan is busy helping Ventress locate Vos. This is in contrast to the duel featured in Season 6's The Lost One, that due to the cancellation of the Clone Wars many people assume is the last duel, which is not true as that duel takes place a long time before Revenge of the Sith, despite both being in 19 BBY. It's also possible that Anakin could have duelled Dooku in the previous Return to the Jedi arc, considering both are also featured in that story. Padme makes what would have been her first appearance since the Ahsoka framed arc in this story, had the Rush Clovis arc aired in Season 5 as intended. Though due to that arc being pushed back to Season 6, and Padme not appearing beyond some nose art in the original 20-episode Season 7, this would have been Padme's first voiceover appearance in almost 2 seasons. Though while this appearance would only be a cameo, I think it's plausible that this is the night that her and Anakin conceive Luke and Leia. This would not be the last appearance of Padme in the show, however, as she would have gone on to have an entire arc of her own later in the same season. Vancor and Christophsis make returns in this story arc, not being fully featured since Season 2. Quinlan Vos would later be referenced in the Kenobi show, being a part of the Path movement. I can't help but relate this to the 4th episode of this arc, also titled The Path, and it confirming that Vos took the charts Ventress gave him and used it for good. This story arc featuring Anakin and Obi-Wan together on missions continues their trademark banter, something that is lesser talked about for this story arc than it is for Crystal Crisis on Utapau. This includes a bunch of jokes with the reprogrammed battle droid's voice modules, including the usage of Roger Roger, as well as another droid stating that he should get his voice module fixed. The final point I'd like to bring up with Dave's sketches is that there seems to be a bunch of sketches depicting a separatist battle with General Grievous involved. It's possible this is the vendetta of Dooku's that is described during the sequence where Ventress shows the Jedi that Dooku and Grievous are on Christophsis, with the on-screen version of the story possibly having a battle action set piece that was cut from the novel due to it being harder to depict. This story arc is the most likely place for the sequence in the sketches, as the other unfinished arcs in this production season don't seem to feature both Dooku and Grievous in a battle setting. While this never ended up coming to fruition, during the development of Star Wars Resistance Season 2, it is said that they were interested in bringing back an older Ventress to fight Kylo Ren. Though this was later cut when Dave Filoni supposedly said that Ventress would just overshadow the other characters if she appeared. While this idea was ultimately scrapped, the character model of Ventress was kept and tweaked into a new character called Mika Gray, who has a strong resemblance to Ventress. Her name even being a reference to Ventress's two voice actors, Gray DeLisle from the 2003 Micro Clone Wars show, and Nick Futterman, who voiced Ventress in the 2008 Clone Wars, and who would have voiced her in an on-screen version of this arc had it been completed. This might explain why 3 production episodes of Resistance were cut from its second season, with production episodes 213, 218, and 219 being unaccounted for. The Bad Batch final season has been confirmed to feature Ventress in some form. At the time of the making of this video, it is not known exactly how her involvement is handled. It could be anything from a vision of her, a clone, or maybe she is somehow resurrected. Executive producer of The Bad Batch Brad Rao has said that they would honour and align any new storytelling with Ventress with the story of the Dark Disciple novel. This to me seems like if she is back for real, that the pool of life on Dathomir could have brought her back, because unlike her sisters she was actually placed into it after she died. Another option is that they can pull from Star Wars Legends and have had Ventress go into a Sith trance, appearing dead to everyone, even Vos, thus keeping the emotion of her attended death in this story arc intact. Ventress could have thought that she did genuinely die, and wake up some unknown time afterwards being shocked she's somehow still alive. Ventress, not wanting to potentially ruin the chance she gave Vos, decides to go into high noon. Now, during the time of the Bad Batch, with the Jedi Order being no more, Ventress could be giving a more happier ending with Vos, with the Bad Batch even possibly containing her reuniting with Vos, with him thinking she was still dead, thus him being overjoyed that he would now get the chance to be with her. This could lead to Ventress possibly even becoming part of the Hidden Path and rescuing children like she did in Season 4 of the Clone Wars and the mission episode of the unfinished Dark Disciple arc, which was included in the first half of the Dark Disciple novel. This would thus give extra meaning for her statement at the end of the Season 4 bounty episode, where Ventress states that she has a future. If she's a clone, I can see it taking a route where the Ventress clone ends up either dying on Tantis and taking all that forced cloning knowledge with her when the facility is destroyed in a potential clone rebellion, or alternatively, they can have her take up the mantle of the original Ventress, find Vos and join the Hidden Path. The third possibility is that her appearance in the trailer is a throw-off. Maybe Vos is the one in the Bad Batch. He could be in a dark place after Order 66, having visions where Ventress could have survived and lived on had he not intervened with her life. This could involve him having one of Ventress's old red sabers, using his Force psychometry on it, and him seeing visions of Ventress as he remembered her. This could potentially involve the Batch helping him overcome his grief, and showing us the origins of the Hidden Path that he's a part of by the time of the Kenobi show. Ventress's outfit in the Bad Batch trailer is also quite different from the design they had planned to use in her 8 unfinished Clone Wars episodes, with her having a backpack and a more jumper-like upper half. This could suggest she's out on a pre-planned mission, with the backpack holding supplies she needs to undertake this mission. Perhaps this mission is for the Hidden Path, with Ventress's appearance in the Bad Batch potentially acting as a backdoor pilot to a sequel show that stars her as a main character. This is compared to Cad Bane in Season 1 of the Bad Batch, who only got a new hat, boots and a cybernetic head patch, while the rest of his outfit was kept like his unfinished Bounty Hunter arc design. Ventress, while still having her blonde hair, has had it remodelled with it having more separate blades and being parted on the opposite side of her head while also being textured differently, removing the textured pattern it was originally planned to have. One thing Ventress has kept with this new design though is her shoulder pauldron with her snake emblem on it, continuing to represent her motif of moving on into different parts of her life, like she's shedding her snakeskin and continually reinventing herself. This could potentially tie into how she's returning after her supposed death. Ventress's saber in the Bad Batch is also different from either her original intended design later used in the Siege of Mandalore arc with Maul, and the other designs they proposed she could have used. It's possible she either just now has another curved hilt design, or that she somehow regained one of her curved ones back from the Jedi Temple after Barriss stole them. Maybe her old yellow one did get stolen by Maul, and she later found one of her red ones and purified it to be yellow. If Ventress has reunited with Vos off screen between the Saving Vos arc and her appearance in the Bad Batch Season 3, maybe Vos gave her back one of her old red ones and she purified it then. The StarWars.com databank was also tweaked to say Ventress sacrificed herself. It removed the part about her giving up her life and added the following hint to the end, but that wasn't the end of Asajj's story. This implies that it is the same Ventress and not some clone, but I wouldn't rule out anything until her episode airs. The reveal that future storytelling with Ventress would align with the Dark Disciple novel continues a trend with the Bad Batch show of referencing unfinished Clone Wars arcs, as previous seasons did with the Bounty Hunter arc and the Kashyyyk arc. This gives a bit of hope that Lucasfilm are interested in revisiting and finishing these stories on screen at some point in the future. Brad Rao mentioning in plural any new storytelling with Ventress also gives a bit of hope that they could do even more with her post the end of the Bad Batch, and hopefully that could include a finished on-screen animated version of Dark Disciple and Saving Vos. It's been said that Maul was originally going to be killed off in Season 5's The Shadow Collective arc, but later in development they decided to keep him alive. It's always possible that had this story arc been fully developed, that they could have done the same with Ventress. Lucasfilm seemed to treat all 10 of the unfinished story arcs the same, whether they were released in an unfinished form, in print, or not at all. This being as core canon stories, which means that while the general consensus of these stories count, they clearly don't mind changing specific story details. Hopefully they will do Ventress' story justice, and if she is somehow alive again for real, they make her reappearance worth this story arc no longer being her definitive end. Her appearance in the Bad Batch could also spark a new story for her that continues off into its own show. This decision with Ventress is an indicator that continuity between print and on-screen material is on a core story level only, with the consensus being that on-screen events are the truer form of canon due to their wider audience reach. Sadly, due to this story arc's cancellation and release in novel form only, it's possible Ventress' appearance in the Bad Batch will gloss over her return, with it being likely they could just have one line of dialogue stating that she quote-unquote died before, and move on without further explanation. Just because Dark Disciple, Son of Dathomir and Saving Vos were released in print back in 2014 to 2015, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be released on screen. The fact that Lucasfilm wanted to release these stories in a time when they couldn't animate them is a testament to how important they really are, which makes this story arc the last of 4 story arcs that in my opinion are vital to be finished on screen. It is also personally the second half of my favourite story out of all of Star Wars, and out of every unfinished arc I wish this one and the Dark Disciple arc would get the animated treatment the most. While Ventress' inclusion in the Bad Batch Season 3 most likely signifies this is no longer her last story, it is still a vital part of her life that deserves to be shown on screen. The alterations to things such as Ventress' lightsaber and her possible resurrection give more reason for these story arcs to be finished on screen and clarified, especially when Lucasfilm seems to still treat the story arc as if it hasn't been finalised, just like with the unfinished arcs that have had no form of release. Along with the Dark Disciple arc, I really hope they complete this story arc in animation one day, whether that be alongside other arcs in a spin-off show, as an animated special alongside Dark Disciple, or an 8-part standalone series combined with Dark Disciple as the novel itself was. Ventress' inclusion in the Bad Batch Season 3 only increases my personal demand for this story arc to be animated. The next unfinished story arc would be the final story of the Clone Wars to focus on the clones before Order 66. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please like, subscribe and comment. Until the next time, goodbye.